Now that our input processing is inside of a function, we can much more easily repeat it using what's called a loop. Now, a loop is a coding structure that allows us to repeat a given piece of code a given number of times based on the conditions provided to the loop. Now, to start with, we're going to use what's called a while loop. A while loop starts with the keyword while, a set of parentheses in which we are going to put a condition, very similar to an if statement. We are going to open a set of braces, and inside of here, we are going to put the code that will repeat. Now, the way a while loop works is while the given condition is true, it's just like an if statement that while this is true, it will execute this code in here, but it will keep executing this code in here for as long as this is true, and this can also be set to change based on what happens inside of the loop. Now, for our purposes here, for our text-based RPG game, it makes a lot of sense for this condition to be if we have HP left, because if you have less than 1 HP, then the game is over in most RPGs. So let's say that HP is greater than 0, and then in here, for the game to keep going, we are going to want to firstly process our inputs, right? We need that. However, if you were to save and reload the page and test that out with just this, you'd find that you really wouldn't get anything out on the console, because this would just keep running forever with the same exact input and no new input from the player. So we need to enable them to get a prompt within the loop. So instead of initializing this on the same line here, we're going to kind of come down and get new input, and we're going to assign it a value from the prompt right here. So now, as long as they have HP that is greater than 0, they will keep getting prompted, where do you want to go, and will respond to their input accordingly. Now, if we save this and come over and reload our page, we can get a new character name of Nuggets. Not going to transfer anything. We can go to the north. Great. Okay. How about the west? Good. South? Good. East? Good. However, let's try reloading the page so that we can, test a different piece of code. Oh, you've initiated an invalid command. Okay. Reload again. Reload again. Now, because we didn't provide any way to exit, no matter how many times we reload, we can't reload the page. And, that's problematic. So, how do we fix this? Well, we need to provide the user with a way to manually exit the game. And to do that, we are going to use an exit flag. Now, this is going to be a variable called exit that exists solely to let the while loop know, hey, we're trying to exit now, we're trying to leave, yo, let us out. Let us reload the page. So here we're going to add and not exit. So then now, as long as exit is false, meaning that the player doesn't want to exit, the not operator will reverse that value to make it true. And so true and HP is greater than 0, true. Then this whole thing is true, and this will repeat. Now, of course, we need to make a command for exiting. So let's go down here and make a case. Exit. And all this is going to do is set exit to true and break. So now, if the player enters exit, this will flip to true, and this will be true. So then not true is false, and false and true is false. Therefore, this will not continue, and we can safely reload our page. Now, you might be wondering, we never assigned a value to begin with to exit. So how can we be evaluating it here with this not operator when we never even gave it a value? Well, in JavaScript, we have what are called falsy values, or values that are essentially false but aren't literally the Boolean false. So let's take a look at this. So we have the literal false, which is the keyword false, But then we have a bunch of other values that if you were to apply a logical operator to them, like not, then they would essentially function as the Boolean false. So let's say falsy val 1, 0 is falsy. Let's say 2, 3. Okay, so 0 is falsy, null is falsy, undefined is falsy, an empty object is also falsy, but we'll get to that. So these values, when put in here, will operate the same as like an actual false. And because we never assigned a value, it's undefined, therefore this is like false, and then not false is true, and then this runs. So if we come back over here, we can't reload the page, so what you're going to have to do is copy paste that file path up in the omnibox of your browser into a new tab, which I've already done pre-prepared. I'm going to reload, give a character a name of nuggets, don't do any stat transfers, we're going to go to the north, good, west, south, east, all functional, and then we type exit, and it stops. And then we can reload the page. Brilliant. Alright, so now that we've explored while loops and learned about falsy values, let's learn about a couple other types of loops. Now, in a future lesson, we are going to give the player an inventory, and they are going to get a starting inventory of 3 items. Now, in order to determine which 3 items are put into their starting inventory, we are going to prompt them at the beginning for 3 magical favorite numbers. We're not going to tell them that this is, what they're for, but they're going to be correlated to items that we're going to define that are eventually going to go into their inventory. So let's create that 3 favorite numbers prompt. Now, in order to get our 3 favorite numbers, well, firstly, we're going to have to ask the player, give 3 favorite numbers between 0 and 10. And then we are going to need to keep count, right, of how many favorite numbers we have. So we're going to do variable valid num count, which we're going to initialize to 0 because we haven't got any valid numbers yet. And we're going to prompt the user for a favorite number, right? So we need a variable in which to store that. Now here's where things get interesting. We are going to use a do-while loop. What is a do-while loop? Well, it's kind of similar to a while loop, but with a subtle difference. So we're going to start with the keyword do, open a set of braces. We're going to do code stuffs in here. And then after the ending brace of the do block, we're going to add the keyword while and a set of parentheses in which we put a condition. Look familiar? Well, this is essentially equivalent to a while loop, with the difference being that where a while loop, if its condition is false to begin with, will never actually run. A do-while loop will always run the contents of the do block at least once. So even if this condition were straight up the Boolean value of false, it would still run. And for us to get our valid numbers, we definitely need to make sure that we prompt them at least once, right? So here we are going to get our favorite number from a prompt. And here's how we're going to make our prompt. We're going to have the valid num count plus 1 plus a colon. So what this will look like when on the prompt will be, say like we don't have any valid numbers so far. We add 1 to that and we have 1 colon. So it's kind of like we're prompting them for, enter number 1. And then once they've done that, then this will go up and then we'll say enter number 2 and so on. But do remember that the prompts return a string value and we need a number. So we're going to cast this to number. And we are going to want an if block to check if it's actually between 0 and 10. And the way we're going to do that is if favorite number is greater than 0 and favorite number is less than 10. Then we're going to tell them that their favorite number was accepted. And we're going to increase our valid number count. Otherwise, we're going to tell them their favorite number is not between 0 and 10. And we're going to want to keep this running as long as we have less than 3 valid numbers. Now, we're going to save this and we are going to test it. So let's go ahead and reload our page, give our character the name of nuggets, not do any stat allocation or anything there. Okay, now we have our prompt for giving 3 numbers between 0 and 10. So let's give 5. Oh, I accidentally typed I5, which is not a number, which is what NaN stands for there. So let's put in just 5. There we go, 5 is accepted, see? And let's put in 8. 8 is also accepted. But let's try putting in a different number. Let's try putting in 234. Oh, 234 is not between 0 and 10. And it keeps going, right? If we put in 456, that doesn't work either. And then if we put in 0, 0 is also not between 0 and 10 because it is literally 0. And if we put in 10, it is literally 10, so it's not between 0 and 10. As a programmer, you have to think about that very, very carefully. So then let's just put in 3 for our number 3, and it's accepted, and then we're prompted with where we want to go and can exit. Brilliant. So that is how we want our do-while loop to work.